All right, well, hello and welcome to our Industrial Organizational Psychology Information Session series. I'm very happy to welcome today Elliott Scott HR, and in particular we have Rosh and Meg, who you'll be hearing from shortly. Rosh, who is the Director of North America, and Meg, who is a researcher and also who's about to graduate from Baruch's IO Psych program. So congrats to you, Meg. Yay.
Nice.
And just a few little keeping items here. One is, well, my name again is Elise Mendel, and I am the Career Director at Baruch's Weissman School of Arts and Sciences graduate programs. We are going to use the chat box for questions. So after the presentation is over, so we wait till it's over, and then I'm going to read your questions. So you'll put them in there and we'll get to them after the presentation. And just to note, we have another info session today at 5 with Northwell, who's also doing a lot of employee engagement work, and next week with PepsiCo. So however you learned about this info session, if you haven't already, you'll see the others coming up, and please register for them as well. All right, let's get to it. So with no further ado, Rosh and Meg, please commence, and thank you again.
Thank you, Elise and Maria. Hi, everyone. My name is Meg. I'm the researcher at Elliott Scott HR's New York City office. I'm joined by my manager and the managing director of North America, as Elise stated, Rosh. So before I hand it over to Rosh, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself and my role. As a researcher, I provide support around all recruitment tasks in our office, do a lot of marketing as well, and I manage the internal database, which we use. So in addition to that, as Elise mentioned, I am graduating, working on handing in my thesis. It's going to be really exciting. I'm really glad that I've been able to partner with Baruch before I have to leave, and also shout out to Rosh and my team, because this position is actually my first role since graduating undergraduate university with a BS in Psych, and then now I'll be graduating from Baruch. And just really grateful to have been in Elliott Scott HR for the past year and a half, and learning a lot from Rosh and all of my colleagues. So Rosh, over to you.
Thanks, Meg. Thanks for the kind words as well. So as Meg and Elise mentioned, I'm the managing director of Elliott Scott. Again, just about me, bit of an HR nerd, similar to everyone else. I've got degrees in human resources, psychology, and an employment law cert. I've got close to 6 or 7 years as an HR business partner before making the switch into recruiting HR professionals. I like to call it a bit of the dark side. I've been fortunate enough to recruit HR professionals around the world. So I started off in Australia, Southeast Asia, Middle East, working with mid to senior level HR talent, and then was fortunate enough to then be relocated with Elliott Scott to New York nearly 6 years ago now, but again, working with mid to senior level HR talent. So long story short, my job essentially is working and partnering with HR talent around the world.
Great. So let's just get this started. All right.
Cool. So I think it's just important just to, again, understand exactly what we do and who we are. So Elliott Scott, we are an HR-only search firm. We only work on HR and HR roles only, and we're global. So we have offices in Hong Kong, Singapore, Sao Paulo, London, and New York. And yeah, as I said, we're basically only a recruitment firm that focuses purely on HR. We tend to work with global organizations across those locations that I mentioned, across their HR functions. So ideally, we get to work from the top down and be far more consultative rather than just trying to be a quick win recruitment firm. One of the best things about Elliott Scott, and one of the key differentiators that comes with working in this remit, is that we've built a powerful and engaging HR community, and we'll definitely be talking about that later, but definitely something that we're very proud of. So just to give you an idea of just exactly the types of roles that we would recruit for, we would recruit from CHROs or heads of HR or chief people officers. We would work around, across all verticals within HR. So things like talent acquisition, recruitment, learning and development, talent development, employee experience, compensation benefits, and even global mobility. So again, a lot of people like Meg, as she said, this is her first job, that have had similar kind of backgrounds, even myself, have come through into these types of careers. And here we've just got a list of some of the companies that we've been fortunate to partner with in the last couple of years. Some household names there: Bloomberg, Latham & Watkins, Sony Music. So again, some really big brands that you probably all are familiar with. And it's great to hear even PepsiCo, as you said, next week are coming in to talk. So again, we work with these types of organizations within their HR functions across all these regions.
Yep. So definitely, as Rosh mentioned, it's ideal that we work with these global companies from the top down across all of their HR roles. Now we have global offices, 5 offices around the world, all placed strategically so that we can really leverage this global perspective. The first office we have was established by our CEO, Stuart Elliott, in 2011 in Hong Kong. Following year, we moved into Singapore. So coupled with Hong Kong, these 2 offices really give us a good presence in the APAC region. And our offices over there have done really well, and they've been awarded for their achievements over the past few years. Following, we moved into Brazil. So the largest country in Latin America. It's also a very strong and emerging financial market. So it's great to have a hub down there. Following, we opened our Midtown Manhattan office, which is where Roshan and I sit. And then in 2015, we opened our London, UK office. Now, these 2 final offices really bring that global perspective together, in that we have offices in 2 of the biggest financial hubs in the world, New York and London, and our senior leadership team sits in the London office now. So all this talk about a global perspective, we are really fortunate to have a wide-reaching HR community that we work with through all of our offices, and we hope that the work that we do with them in these different regions can be of advantage to you.
Yeah, so we mentioned the word HR community, and I think we'll probably mention it a few more times, but this is definitely something that I think is a key differentiator, but something that we're very proud of, and something that I definitely want to share with most of you. So just to give you some numbers exactly on what that means, on LinkedIn, we have probably about 75,000 HR professionals that follow us. In our database, we have over 40,000 HR professionals. So all around the world, all HR, all vetted, all talked to, all engaged. So how do we build this community, and what do we do within this community? I think, we've been in operation for nearly 10 years, as Meg's pointed out. We're able to tap into that very easily. We do a lot of pulse surveying. We do a lot of asking questions, interviewing. So we understand, and people come to us because we're experts in this space, because we're constantly talking to HR professionals. We'll mention some of the recent surveys that we've done, and I think that's later on in the presentation. But look, we also do some of the traditional stuff, so events and strategic partnerships. To give you an idea of some of the events that we've hosted in the past, particularly here in New York. We partnered with LinkedIn and Arcadia, I think 4 times last year, where we had about 70 to 80 HR professionals come to LinkedIn's headquarters for an information session around topics like emotional intelligence, biased and unbiased decision-making, resilience. And look, these are really informative for the members that come in and participate, but it also just allows for that interaction and collaboration once the event's over. So it's really powerful, and we really enjoy kind of creating these opportunities. Even some of the smaller things, which I think, again, are unique to us and something I'm very proud of, is some workshops. So we've even done things like a workshop around disrupt the job interview process. So again, having 15 HR professionals in a room that never meet, talk about some of the challenges, and then we look to solve some of those problems. And again, we do white papers on that, and there's going to be some documents that we can share with you later on some of these events. But again, these are some of the things that we do within the community. Another piece is some just video content. So we do a lot of videoing and market insights and market assessments. And the new thing that we've done this year, which we've seen a lot of good traction, is podcasts. So again, we're talking to HR thought leaders, or again, people that are disrupting the HR space. And again, we're very proud to kind of showcase that. I think it's on every 2 weeks. So, after this, we'd love you guys to subscribe. It's a really good way of just getting an insight to what's happening in the HR world. So I think that's basically kind of the community piece around what we do.
Yeah. As Rosh mentioned, that podcast, the image on the top, actually, that just came out today with Toby Hervey, the co-founder of Bravely, which is a professional development coaching company. If you guys haven't heard of them, definitely check them out. But now moving on, Rosh also talked about HR surveys that we do. One of the most recent ones that we did, very important right now, is the impact of COVID on the HR function. So you can see here, we collected all of these responses within the first 3 weeks that New York City went into lockdown. So it was pretty fresh. And we found that the current biggest internal HR challenge for most departments, for most HR departments, was crisis management. Very appropriate that it's number one, because given the drastic shift, a lot of companies have had to make, policies, reporting procedures, and their products essentially to just avoid a negative impact on their bottom line. So crisis management is number one. Mental health, number two. We thought this was indicative of, the empathy and the sympathy that employers are showing for their employee populations, and is also quite appropriate because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. We expect this to be a topic of continuing discussion as this progresses. And similar with employee engagement, it's definitely going to be a big topic as we move forward, with teams working remotely and the return to the office very slowly progressing. The engagement that individuals have with their teams, with their work, is definitely going to remain front of mind. And as you can see on the bottom left, a large percentage of our responders are very concerned for their job security. And this is true. It can be really tough right now, whether you're still working or you are just graduating and looking for a new position. There are some things you can do to stay on track with your professional goals and use the slower pace of business to your advantage. Just so you guys know, the full report for this is available on our website, and we will be providing links as well. And
just with that, Meg, I just also want to just give you guys some comfort. It's not all doom and gloom. I think there is also some, this was done for the first 3 weeks of the pandemic. We're probably going to do another survey. Yep. And again, this is a real powerful tool that we get to do and tap in to see these trends. I can definitely tell you things like mental health and even returning to work and virtual working have really now kind of spiked in terms of what's trending in the space. And even, yes, look, I think generally speaking, I think most people are worried about, job security and what have you. In HR in particular, I think, there have been some particular parts of the roles that have been affected are talent acquisition or learning and development. But surprisingly, things like HR business partners or HR generalists are still in quite big need. There's a lot of communication and a lot of work that needs to guide businesses through some of these difficult times. So those roles, and then compensation and benefits, and usually wellness does sit underneath the benefits piece, in which Megan mentioned. So there is still some really good opportunities out there, albeit that most people are probably still feeling anxious and worried.
Yeah. So, I'm really looking forward to getting that more, or running the more up-to-date survey. So keep an eye out for that from us. Now, into what you can do during this time.
Yeah. So as I said, it's not all doom and gloom. And I think anyone that's graduating or, looking out for a new job, some of these things are going to be applicable now or in the future, but I still think it's important, more so than ever, to kind of take these things into consideration. So, join a community. I mean, this alumni is probably a really great community example. It's great to see that you're speaking to so many people from, the HR world. Likewise, I just showcased what we do in our community. So, I would strongly recommend that you look at joining a couple of these. It's a really powerful place to kind of just, get your bearings, understand what's going on. And it's just it's a good safety space. And I think when you're looking at also joining a community, you know, you really want to make sure that you're you kind of using it as a tool to not just, you know, learn. It's a place to get mentors, advisors, but it's also what can you do to help, right? So I think there's a really important piece when it, you know, probably aligns to networking. You know, everyone wants a job. Everyone wants to be, you know, getting some things from it. Don't lead with that. It's always about understanding how you can help, how you can kind of contribute to that community first and foremost. And that's going to be a far more powerful way of taking, you know, being a part of that group. The other thing I would say just with networking and joining something like this group would be, it's a long-term investment. You know, like our personal relationships, it's, you know, it's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to send one CV and get a job. You're not going to reach out to one person and they're going to reply. It does take some time. And I think the more that you can appreciate and manage your own expectations around that and be committed to a longer term investment, you'll see the benefits from it. It's taken us nearly 11 years or 10 years to build the community I just described. So again, it's really going to be something that you're thoughtful, and it's a never ending kind of piece of the role. So some tips, I think, just so you guys, again, feel like you're taking away something practical. And you may have heard some of this stuff before, but I think it's very important to kind of keep it quite simple. Understand your target market. I think it's really important to do some research. And again, think leading with how you can help rather than what you can get. I think those are some really important things just to kind of take away. When you understand your target market, you know, think about your personal brand then, or your elevator pitch. I use just a simple exercise that I share with my team. Just imagine if you're in a bar and someone asks, what do you do? How do you explain that to them in a very simple, concise manner? Like, that is a very important way of how you engage and how you talk. If you don't understand that, it's going to be hard for someone to really understand how you can help or how you can help them. I think the other part, which I think is really important around personal branding is, you know, we can talk about LinkedIn, and I think we'll go into that a little bit more, but again, just understanding who your target markets are and using it as a marketing piece. Understanding that, you know, we all go on company websites. We all, you know, we are looking at their career pages. They've got a lot of good content on there. We're formulating our own decisions and thoughts around, yeah, I'd like to work for that company, or yes, that's interesting. But you know, you should also put in perspective that the companies are doing that to us. Right? So you really need to kind of flip that and also think, if I want to work for, you know, the PepsiCos of the world or the Bloombergs of the world, you really need to be thoughtful around your target market and understanding kind of how you can align to those pieces. So it is quite a powerful marketing piece that you may want to go. So understanding your target market and then understanding where you want to come from. And look, I think with a LinkedIn that has that, I mean, the CV piece is always a very topical discussion in the recruitment space in particular. There's probably a lot of literature. Every single recruiter you speak to has probably got their own bit of advice that they can share on this. But I'll kind of tell you my little bit. Just, it's very practical. And I would share this with most of our community and the people, our candidates in particular. Think of your CV more as you know, what's the purpose of a CV? The purpose of a CV is, you know, it's not your career on a piece of paper. The person that is reading your CV has a problem. So a hiring manager, decision maker, whatever it is, the easier you can align to solving that person's problems or, you know, help that person, the more engaged they're going to be, the more inclined they're wanting to speak to you. So really be thoughtful again about kind of who's reading it and how you want to be seen. And that's the best way I can give you. Yeah, best piece of advice is just always being conscious of, the end user, rather than kind of putting your whole career on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
I think, you know, just in terms of making sure LinkedIn and your CV, look, I'm a big advocate again for tailoring CVs more so than your LinkedIn, but there should still be consistency with those two. The last thing you want is someone to make a decision on your behalf where you've not been able to, you know, dictate that. So if you've got, you know, different roles or different names or things like that, people will make inferences, and unfortunately, you know, that's not your decision and you're going to be typecast. So again, just be very clear around the consistency. Networking, particularly in a virtual space. We were just talking about this, that I've told you about some of our cool events that we're hosting at LinkedIn and all these things. How do you do that virtually? I mean, this is a great portal. This is a great, we've done a lot of webinars ourselves in the last 3 weeks. Again, probably targeted about 70 to 80 professional HR people have attended some of our webinars. And again, it just allows you to have some conversations. Look, it may not be as traditional, but it still allows for conversations to happen, questions to be asked, speaking to industry experts, and at least you're in the know. So I mean, look, there's so many of these out there. And, again, we can point you in the direction of a few others, but yeah, definitely recommend and getting out there and kind of going to some of these webinars. And look, it would be silly from a recruiter not to kind of talk you through the easiest one. The best one is cold outreach. There's nothing stopping any of us doing that, right? So, I mean, it's quite daunting to many, and, no one wants to be the most annoying person that's always reaching out and trying to ask for help and trying to get their foot in the door. But that's where you want to be thoughtful. So take into consideration just the process I just went through about knowing your target market, be well versed, understand how you can help, make sure you've got your elevator pitch together, make sure you've understood a lot of those pieces before you just randomly start cold outreaching. I mean, me, myself, and my team, we do this every single day. I reckon I meet maybe 20 to 30 new people a week, right? So just in terms of just cold outreach, it's there, it's applicable, it's available. Just make sure you go through that checklist of making sure you've understood the markets and the people you're reaching out to. And as I said, it takes time. I mean, don't expect it to happen overnight. It's going to take time to build some of these relationships. So my suggestion, particularly in times like this is the best time to be doing it. A lot more people are receptive to probably open conversation than they would lead with empathy and compassion. So this is a great time. I've got to speak to people that I'd never really had the chance to talk to. So I definitely think that this is the best time to be going out there, cold reach, networking, and educating yourself.
Yeah, definitely everything that Rosh has mentioned, these kind of more general, larger practices may be daunting at first, but once you put them into practice, it really becomes like second nature. Now, for my role, I am on LinkedIn all day, every day. I see candidate resumes every day, screen them, format them, all of that good stuff. So on a more granular level with your LinkedIn and CV, there are some things you want to make sure are as perfect as you can get them. So with LinkedIn, make sure you have a photo. Always make sure you have a photo so that whoever's looking you up can put a face to the name and kind of gives your profile a bit more credibility. Second, you want to add some flair to it, add a creative tagline like you can see Rosh and I have on our profiles, and just give insight into what you're interested in, what you're doing now, what interests, what kind of communities you're a part of, things like that. And then again, as Rosh mentioned, you want to make sure your LinkedIn and CV are aligned. As for your CV, when I'm reading them every day, I notice that poor grammar and really complex formats where people try to make it super fancy, that makes it really difficult for the reader actually. And you just want to be conscious of that, make sure everything is clear, concise, and also you don't want anyone to make a decision for you on your behalf, as Rosh mentioned. So there are very basic things that you can do. But once you have these perfected, it'll give you more wiggle room to go out and join these communities and be confident in what you're looking for and what you have to offer. Overall, if you'd like any more CV advice, feel free to reach out to us because that's what we're good at. And following here, you'll see our entire team and our contact information. That's Danny. He runs our global mobility branch, and Pri is a consultant with us working with junior to mid-level professionals. So I know Elise will be sending out a recap sheet that we have for you guys soon after this. And also that includes links to our events, our write-ups, anything like that, and some other resources for graduating students too. So thank you guys for your time, and we hope that you got something helpful out of this, and we look forward to connecting with you.
Cool. I think there was one question. Did you want to, Elise, did you?
Yeah, I just, I had a couple of questions and then I see one coming in as well. And the question actually is, if you have any opportunities, paid, unpaid, internships, full-time, and also what's the best way for people to reach out to you? Like, what do you look for in candidates? What's your process? So kind of along those lines.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, look, I think it goes back to just what I was saying before about understanding your target market. So, a big part of our job is to make that assessment on both sides. So, we would work very closely with our clients and their HR teams, really understand maybe culture, things that are unique to them, maybe maturity of the business, and look to then convey that to candidates. On the flip side, when we're looking at candidates, we're really looking for some of those things that would align to the brief. So, most people have probably applied for a job on an applicant tracking system, and it goes through these big pieces, which are quite complicated to mandate. I think the best way is also to build a relationship with recruiters, as I said. So, the reason why I really push that HR community is to really start becoming informed, build a personable relationship with people like ourselves. We're going to become quite pivotal in this next phase as we start to go back into some of the normal parts of the work. And I think it's just important just to have people that you can trust and lean on to kind of get where where the peaks and the troughs are. Do we hire personally? I mean, Meg's a great example of someone that's come straight out of while she was still completing her master's and starting with us. So that means, we really, we do look for junior talent. And again, if you are open to looking at a career in recruiting, always happy to speak to someone about that.
Okay, so what are some of the hard and soft skills? You mentioned some soft skills now, but that you look for in candidates, and specifically somebody new to HR. Like, I was wondering about Meg's background and what did she have that made you want, and that made you hire her?
Yeah, good question. I think one of the biggest things that it's a good question. I think a lot of people in HR go with the tendency to think, HR is HR. Doesn't matter what industry, it doesn't matter where you come from. It's, once you've learned these types of skills, that's HR. I would actually challenge that. And I think the best thing that we look at is it's someone that understands where HR sits within a business. It's a support function. It's there to help the business, right? So really someone that has commercial and business acumen and has a really good understanding of what a business is trying to do, and then how you can help that from an HR perspective is really the key to kind of where we look at, good talent versus not so good. So someone that really has that commercial and business acumen. And from a soft skills perspective, it's subjective at times. It's, again, very much, we talk about things like, how do you build a relationship? How do you build a rapport? A lot of these things are, quite hard to assess initially, but I mean, again, it does sometimes come down to our, hiring teams or our clients. I would emphasize, and something that I'm really passionate about, is emotional intelligence. And the reason why we did a whole event based around emotional intelligence is purely because of that. A lot of, our clients look for people that intuitively can read between the lines. And again, it's a subjective piece, but there are certain tools and things that you can become self-aware about that help you understand how best to build these rapports and how to maybe position yourself. So for me, I think it really comes down to just framing and understanding kind of who you're talking to and why you're talking to them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Who you're talking to, why you're talking to them. I graduated in 2017 and I actually worked in retail for a year, saving up money. And then I went to interview with Elliott Scott. I knew I wanted to do HR. I had been accepted into Baruch's program, and I really just relayed to Rosh how all I wanted to do was learn about HR, the different functions, the different kinds of roles. And Elliott Scott and recruiting in general is a great way to get an idea of how companies in different industries run their departments, what's important to them. And it just really helped me get a really broad general knowledge of HR. And then from there, kind of pick what interests me, learning and development, employee relations or compliance, things like that.
Along those lines, what are some of the skills that should be highlighted on a resume for a learning and development position?
Yeah.
I mean, look, so I think it's quite hard to kind of talk on a granular level, because there are probably some technical skills that you probably still need to have. I think for me, again, it will start with just understanding learning and development functions and how they work. There's different facets of that. It could be, you could literally be a facilitator. You could be someone in the back piece, which is with an LMS system, which is a learning management system tool. It could be around employee engagement. It could be around professional development versus technical training. So there is so many, parts of that which become quite hard to assess. So I think it's, again, if anyone was at the entry level, I think it's really, again, understanding kind of that full gamut. So, large organizations have really big talent and L&D functions, what that would look like versus maybe a small startup. So I think it's kind of hard to really kind of just pinpoint key skills. But I mean, from a technical experience, if you've come through this industrial psychology background, as Meg has, I mean, there are some really good principles there, which, technically you've got a good baseline to understand how that would be practically used.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some companies that are quite progressive, and again, happy to kind of talk offline with some of those, but, some of them are creating talent assessment tools, really kind of thinking around kind of what kind of employees we want to attract, what kind of employees we want to retain, and it becomes quite technical. So they are creating these tools that do, kind of bring people in. Yeah. Hopefully that helps. It's hard to kind of just give you an exact, these are the three things that we would look in an L&D person.
Yeah, it really depends on the role, the level of the role, the client. I mean, I'll say what I've seen from the roles that my team works on, whenever they're L&D roles, it's either more geared toward e-learning, so like instructional design, where you really want to know like articulate, like Photoshop, all of those kinds of technical skills are required for e-learning roles. And then when Rosh spoke more about like facilitating and training, obviously training and development skills, project management skills are going to be crucial for L&D.
Okay. Would you hire, I say hire in quotes, would you allow somebody to volunteer with you during the summer to gain experience? And I know remote, non-remote might make a difference. I don't know. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, good question. I mean, look, we definitely would. And then, look, truth be told, we were looking at doing that this year. And, that's why, we were quite excited to engage with you guys. So, look, to be confirmed at the moment, to be honest, there's a lot of other things that we need to personally assess. I mean, our workspace, we haven't been there since March. So again, onboarding, things like that, onboarding virtually, how do we make offers? These are things that are trending in the HR world. And again, people, I think we can go out there and research what the best is. So personally, would we offer, internships or, happy to talk to people. And again, case by case, we'd be able to engage.
All right, so these are all similar related, which is we're getting into the nitty gritty of everything. What kinds of roles do you place recent graduates into? What kinds of roles are they qualified for, and what are they not qualified for?
Okay. I mean, so she works with our junior to mid-level candidates on junior to mid-level roles. I would say she places a lot of HR coordinators, people who have 1 to 3 years experience. HR coordinators are popular, and then also coordinators in other functions, benefits coordinators, HRIS coordinators, things like that.
Yeah, my suggestion is at the junior level, not to be so off-put by titling or kind of where the role sits. I think any opportunity, particularly just to get in, is the best, right? So don't try and, again, manage your own expectations when it comes to, we all may want to be an HR leader one day, or we may want to, create this amazing culture in this progressive world and be the next Facebook. Like, that's not where it starts. It takes time. My suggestion is entry level, you really just want to get under someone, learn a business, understand just some of the basics. That's where it's a trial and error process. So some of the entry level roles, I would say that it's quite competitive at times, but at the same time, the ones that usually kind of are or the candidates that are usually successful are those that are able to understand that it's not going to be perfect. It's, yeah, I can understand how I can still help someone with the experience that I've got and use that as a stepping stone to kind of better understand where they want to take their next step. I give a lot of career advice around, someone traditionally may want to go step 1, step 2, step 3. It doesn't work like that in the perfect world. You've got to really understand kind of your own skill sets and competencies and really start to think, well, if I personally my first HR job was at a company of 70 or 80 people. And I thought I was the best. I was the only HR person reporting into a general manager. And it was a great role to learn everything. I went from that to GE, which is at the time the world's biggest company, over 300,000 people. And I was an HR coordinator. And it did seem like a step back in time. But now that I've gone through that experience, learning how GE aligned their HR function to their business needs across many geographical locations, different P&Ls, was pivotal for me to now then understand that, how I can add value as an HR practitioner. So my suggestion early on is just, again, be thoughtful around kind of how you can help rather than what you can get.
So what are some of the keys on immersion intelligence? What are some of the ways to build the skill in building rapport?
Meg, do you want to go or should I go?
You can go.
Okay. Look, emotional intelligence is, I think it's quite a powerful topic, particularly in the last 18 months. And, things that we've had clients even ask us to do some assessments on. It's one of those things which is, again, it's hard to kind of pinpoint exactly, how to define it or how to define if you've got strong EQ or low EQ. But I think it really comes again around being thoughtful. So being self-aware, understanding how you learn, understand kind of when, it's those gray areas where you build a rapport and should you ask that question, should you not ask that question, or how do you want to ask that question? So again, it's really becoming thoughtful, and it's a lot of, work, around yourself, and then being aware around how you see the world or how others see the world. And I think a really good way of you just becoming comfortable with that is, joining a community, right? To being able to join a certain community and better understand what's important to the HR world or what's important to companies and how HR is helping. That's going to then help you frame kind of, where your strengths are and how you can, take that on.
Yeah, definitely. Just to add to that, I think just gaining experience within communities with other professionals and also in a professional work setting, the emotional intelligence will be a conscious effort, something that you're always working towards, but it will come more naturally, I think, when you are with a group of like-minded individuals who have the same beliefs about emotional intelligence. So it's never going to be perfect, but as long as, like Rosh said, you're being aware of yourself, your behaviors, potential different learning styles around you, and just leading with that compassion, you'll be on the right steps to building up that emotional intelligence.
I just add in there, just to give you guys, again, context to maybe some senior roles that we work on. So when we do maybe like a chief people officer or a head of HR, part of that recruitment process would include psychometric testing at times. So, that does include things like maybe even 360-degree feedback. So again, thinking about kind of mentors that give you feedback, your peers, and then even people that maybe that report into you. And that compiles a really powerful piece around kind of how you see the world, how you think you see the world, and kind of where some of those development points are. So there are organizations that really do use some of these tools, but again, I would say that's probably more at the senior level. At entry level roles, most of the HR graduate programs, I would say there's parts of that as well where they make their assessment. So again, there are a lot of tools out there to practice some of those things. And again, if you do need help kind of finding where you can find those tools, community is the best place to ask. But again, you can come ask us as well.
All right. Going back to looking for entry-level positions. So if you only have internship experience, how do you get your foot in the door when this person sees particularly talent acquisition and learning and development require 2 to 5 years of experience?
Yeah, good question. I mean, look, as I said earlier, and the reason why I think it's, going back to the community piece and always be networking, that's it. Like it's not going to happen overnight. And, some people, it does take some time. You've just got to be patient around that. I firmly believe the reason why we've been successful and we've been able to help so many people in the HR world is because of that. We're being very conscious about and thoughtful around, I want to learn from someone. I want to just, there's a lot of people there offering free assistance. There's a lot of people, a lot of these communities are all free. You can go off and learn and partner with people all on yourself. There is no need just because it's a job, and that's the logical next step. There's many ways to learn and get that exposure that you're seeking. So I firmly believe that building a relationship and a network is the best way to kind of get your foot in the door. Yeah,
I definitely agree with Rosh. You want to strengthen those relationships that you have, maybe new ones that you've just formed, follow up on those. Personally, for me, I had an HR internship and 1 year of experience working in retail when I applied for Elliott Scott. So what I actually did was, whatever job you do, there will always be transferable skills, and it's going to be up to you to pull that out and present it clearly to whoever you're meeting. So I was doing retail, working in sales. I'm kind of going towards recruiting, so it's a little bit related. I was helping train some of the girls that I was working with at my store, training and development. I was interested in HR. You just pull out little things like that. In my internship, I did, try and tell a story. My internship was in Sydney, Australia. A lot of my team members are from Australia, so that was a great connecting point. Anything you can do to relate yourself to the company or the person you're meeting, and then highlighting those transferable skills will help you a lot as an entry level.
Just with that as well, I think there was a follow-up question. So again, just going back to kind of presenting yourself, so knowing who you are and who your target market is. So I think, the question was around, I've got 3 to 5 years experience, how do I show my transferable skills? It's again, being very thoughtful about, if I'm looking at an L&D role, there's job descriptions online, or, you can find them quite easily. You really want to start thinking, how do I show someone, that's the hiring manager, that I can do this? And even if you haven't done that, you still need to, you want to let them know that there is parts of your experience that you can do that. Again, I would play that, I'd challenge yourself and play that bar scenario. How do you leave someone going, yep, they're confident that they understood what I did, or have they left going, yep, that person understands what I need? Be very simple like that. Don't overthink it or complicate it. It's very simple.
In applying with Elliott Scott, where would people look for positions, and do you ask for cover letters?
Yeah, it's a good question. So look, we post jobs online. Our website's also a very good place to go, and we also do, as I said, we do a lot of content pushed out, so it's easy to get in touch with us. So hopefully the best way to apply, traditionally through job ads, or just come directly to us, and we can at least give you market insights to where opportunities are. The second part of that question was?
Cover letters. Cover
letters, yeah. As with CVs, I think it's a very topical conversation in the recruitment world. Again, my train of thought is very much around practicality. Is it adding value to your application? Are you being thoughtful around it? Is it making, do I personally read every single cover letter? I'll be honest, probably not. I'm still probably, skipping through into key parts because I'm looking at kind of what my clients look for, and can that be solved? If I'm looking just opportunistically at talent, just to keep going through, again, I'm looking at stories that align to our clients. So again, I'm being very conscious of that. A cover letter, I think, is, look, it is thoughtful. I would maybe go one step further and say I prefer thank you letters rather than cover letters, particularly when you engage with people. We can preach as much as we can, but the most important thing is people are going to remember you, but how you made them feel. So if you're respectful and thoughtful around that process, hopefully the world's not a bad place, but people will respect that.
All right, we have one more question here, which is what types of statistical tools do you use? Is it R, SPSS?
Within Elliott Scott?
Yes.
So the main internal database we use is Microdeck Profile RPM. It is not super commonly used in the United States, I believe, because our headquarters is in London, so it's an English program. But that is a system that we use. We don't use R, SPSS, Python, or SQL, anything like that in our office. We really focus on that relationship piece. So it's a lot of phone calls, emails, going out for meetings, as Roshan and my other colleagues do.
I think there's, just an interesting stat maybe the group would like to hear. Pre-COVID, I'll give you an example that maybe we would post a job for an entry-level HR coordinator. I would say that maybe there's over 200, maybe 250 applicants, right? So that is a lot. If we were to go out and reach out to 250 people, speak to them each, that's nearly 250 hours worth of work. Do I think that that's the most effective way to get there? Sometimes, but not always. So as I said, I think you've got to really take into consideration joining the community, building some relationships, understand that, someone that can advocate for you, someone that you can trust. And as I said, recruitment firms, I think they get a bad rep at times, but ones that are truly, thoughtful and considerate about this community development, there are a lot of them out there, including us. I think those are the ones that you really want to kind of work towards, because they're going to be your best insights to what's happening in the market.
Do you use applicant tracking systems as your initial screening?
We personally do not. So as a recruitment firm, our applicant tracking system is the Microdeck piece. So that does then collate into data that we can then break up applicants. But our clients definitely do use applicant tracking systems. And then as vendors, we would then use those. Look, they are complicated at times. And again, it's a very good debate, and there's many tools to kind of make, what's the most effective way to get noticed in an applicant tracking system. As I said, if we're getting 200 to 250 job applicants per one post, dare I say, most of those companies are as well, and they're trying to streamline just that volume. So again, I think it's really being self-aware of how you're going to be solving that, the role that you're applying's problem, or trying to help that hiring manager or that team. Those are the ones that get noticed the best. Most applicant tracking systems probably still feature keyword searches. So again, I would ask candidates, here's a sample job description. Here's if you're telling me you want this job, show me how they're marrying. How are you matching that? And it may not just be as simple as like, I've done that. It's, you'll get caught out in an interview process. You really need to kind of show some results or ways of showing that you've understood that.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to stop here. I want to thank you both, Rosh and Meg, so much for giving your time and your expertise and your information. I think was very useful to everybody. So thank you. And yes, applause. I see some reactions, so we'll give some applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, I want to reiterate your words about networking and building those relationships, as this is a perfect time for that. And hope to see everybody on our remaining 2 info sessions. But again, Meg and Rosh, thanks again. And we'll see you on our LinkedIn networking relationship building platforms.
Yeah, hopefully. And as I said, please feel free to reach out to us, join our community. We're HR nerds. So if you want to know what's going on,
We're
talk
your
to you
people.
today. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks so much,
Abs-
everyone, for your time.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Signing off.